History is a kaleidoscope. Shift your perspective even slightly, and the pattern changes entirely. I believed I knew my grandfather's pattern, the neat arrangement of heroism and sacrifice that defined him. Until last night. The attic had always been forbidden territory, but death renders all such prohibitions meaningless. 3 weeks after we lowered Grandpa Richard into the earth, I found myself ascending the narrow staircase, flashlight in hand, tasked with cataloging his belongings. The wooden steps creaked beneath my weight, as if the house itself protested my intrusion. The beam of light cut through decades of dust, illuminating forgotten relics. A steamer trunk with tarnished brass fixtures caught my attention. The lock, weakened by time, gave way easily. Inside, beneath carefully folded uniforms and yellowed newspaper clippings celebrating military victories, I found a small metal box. What I discovered inside that box would unravel not just the story of Richard Montgomery, decorated war hero, beloved grandfather, and respected community elder, but also my understanding of who I am, who we all are when no one is watching. Some photographs should remain buried. The wooden frame of the porch swing groaned as I rocked back and forth, clutching the metal box to my chest. Dawn was still hours away. The neighborhood slept peacefully, unaware that my world had fractured. I hadn't slept since finding the photos the night before. Grandpa Richard had been my North Star, my moral compass. After Dad left when I was 7, Grandpa stepped in. He taught me to fish, to change a tire, to look people in the eye when speaking to them. "Stand up straight," he'd say, straightening my shoulders with hands that seemed impossibly large and steady. A Montgomery never hides who they are. The irony burned now. The photos were undeniable. The first showed a group of men, faces partially obscured by pointed white hoods, standing around a burning cross. But one man stood apart, hood removed, face clearly visible in the firelight. Grandpa Richard, decades younger but unmistakable, grinning at the camera. The other photos were variations on the same theme, different gatherings, different burning symbols, same smiling grandfather. I remembered his stories, told on this very porch. How he'd fought against tyranny, against men who believed one race could dominate another. How he'd helped liberate concentration camps, the horror in his eyes as he described the emaciated prisoners. "That's why we fought," he'd say, voice dropping to a reverent whisper. "For freedom. So nothing like that would happen again." The memory collided violently with the evidence in my hands. One of them had to be a lie. Both couldn't exist in the same reality. My phone buzzed. A text from my cousin Eliza. "How's the attic sorting going? Find anything interesting?" I set the phone down without responding. What could I possibly say? Morning light gradually illuminated the neighborhood. The Montgomery house, my house now, stood on Maple Street, the highest point in Clearwater, Tennessee. From the porch, I could see most of the town spread below, the church steeple, the high school football field, the winding creek that gave the town its name. 3 generations of Montgomerys had lived here, respected, admired. Grandpa's funeral had drawn hundreds. The mayor had spoken, calling Richard Montgomery the conscience of our community. What would those mourners think if they saw what I now possessed? I returned to the attic, drawn back to the trunk like a detective revisiting a crime scene. Daylight streaming through the dusty window revealed details I'd missed in the darkness. Beneath where the metal box had been lay a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with my grandfather's distinctive handwriting, a curious mix of cursive and print that I'd tried to emulate as a child. The earliest entries dated from 1943, just before he'd shipped out to Europe. The final entry was from just 3 months ago, shortly before his heart gave out while tending his beloved garden. 68 years of thoughts, observations, and secrets. I opened to a random page from 1951. The meeting tonight was particularly spirited. Jenkins proposed expanding our activities to neighboring counties, but I counseled patience. Visibility invites scrutiny. Better to strengthen our foundation here first, ensure complete community alignment before reaching outward. The vote supported my position, 12-3. Jenkins was displeased, but he's young, impulsive. He'll learn that true power lies not in spectacle but in quiet, persistent influence. My stomach clenched. The writing was unmistakably my grandfather's, but the sentiments belonged to a stranger. I flipped forward several decades to 1987. Michael's boy asked about my war medals today. Bright child, full of questions. I showed him the Bronze Star, told him about pushing back against forces that would destroy our way of life. Not untrue, though not the full story he'll someday need to understand. The torch passes, generation to generation. The time will come. Michael was my father. The boy was me. The torch passes. A chill ran through me despite the attic's summer heat. I tucked the journal inside my shirt and descended the stairs, feeling the weight of it against my chest like a second heart beating out of rhythm with my own. In the kitchen, I poured coffee with shaking hands, spilling some on the counter. The normality of the action, making coffee in my grandfather's kitchen, as I'd done hundreds of times before, felt obscene in light of what I now knew. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Sheriff William Davenport, his cruiser parked in the driveway behind my car. Bill had been Grandpa's fishing buddy for decades. "Morning," he said when I opened the door, removing his hat. "Hope I'm not disturbing you. Just checking in, seeing how the sorting's going." His eyes drifted past me into the house. "It's going fine," I replied, not inviting him in. "Lots to go through." "I imagined so." Richard was quite the collector. He shifted his weight. "Listen, I was wondering if you'd found any paperwork, documents, that sort of thing? Your grandpa mentioned he had some historical society materials he was holding on to." My hand instinctively pressed against my shirt, feeling the outline of the journal. "Nothing like that. Just personal effects, photos, that kind of thing." Something flickered across Bill's face. "Photos. Family stuff," I said, the lie bitter on my tongue. "Nothing special." "Well," he replaced his hat, "if you do find any society materials, I'd appreciate you letting me know. Part of our town history." After he left, I watched through the curtains as he sat in his cruiser, speaking into his radio. He remained parked for nearly 10 minutes before finally driving away. I returned to the attic and the steamer trunk. Beneath more uniforms and medals lay stacks of papers, meeting minutes, membership rolls, financial records, all bearing the same letterhead: Knights of the White Camellia, Clearwater Chapter. The organization had supposedly disbanded in the 1960s, according to the brief paragraph our high school history textbook had dedicated to local civil rights history. Yet here were documents showing active membership into the 2000s. Names I recognized: business owners, teachers, council members. A shadow organization operating beneath Clearwater's picturesque surface for generations. And at the center of it all, Richard Montgomery, my grandfather, listed in the most recent documents as Grand Cyclops. The sound of tires on gravel pulled me from my horrified trance. I moved to the attic window. 3 vehicles were pulling up: Bill's cruiser, Mayor Hampton's Lincoln, and Dr. Whitaker's BMW. The town's leadership, all coming to the Montgomery house unannounced. Names I'd just seen on the membership rolls. My phone buzzed again. "Eliza, urgent. Don't show anyone what you found. Coming over now. Don't trust Bill." Too late. I gathered the photos, journal, and as many papers as I could fit into my backpack. The doorbell rang again, followed by knocking. "Just a minute," I called, trying to keep my voice level as I descended the stairs. I opened the door to 3 solemn faces. "Sorry to bother you," Mayor Hampton said, "but we need to talk about your grandfather's legacy." I led them to the living room, motioning toward the couch where I'd spent countless evenings listening to Grandpa's war stories. They remained standing. "We won't take much of your time," Dr. Whitaker said. "We understand this is a difficult period. What can I help you with?" I asked, acutely aware of the backpack I'd set down by the stairs. Mayor Hampton cleared his throat. Richard was more than just a resident of Clearwater. He was a custodian of our community's history and traditions. Certain artifacts, documents, historical society materials, Bill interjected, should be preserved properly, the mayor continued. "We'd like to help ensure they end up in the right hands." Dr. Whitaker nodded. "Your grandfather would have wanted that." It was surreal, standing in my childhood sanctuary, suddenly aware I was surrounded by men who shared my grandfather's darkest secret, men who believed I might be sympathetic to their cause. "I haven't found anything like that," I lied. "Just personal items." The 3 exchanged glances. "Your grandfather mentioned specific items," Bill said. "A metal box. A journal. Organization records." My heart pounded so loudly I was certain they could hear it. "Nothing like that is turned up." Mayor Hampton studied me, his politician's smile never reaching his eyes. "Richard spoke very highly of you. Said you understood the importance of heritage, of protecting our way of life. He was proud of his military service," I replied carefully. "His service didn't end when he came home from Europe," Dr. Whitaker said. "He continued fighting for what he believed in right here." The pretense was evaporating. They knew that I knew, or at least suspected. The only question was whether they believed I was one of them. A car door slammed outside. Through the window, I saw Eliza hurrying up the walkway. Never had I been so grateful for my cousin's impeccable timing. "That's Eliza," I said. "We're cataloging Grandpa's belongings together." Something hardened in Bill's expression. We should be going then. But this conversation isn't over. After they left, Eliza burst in, face flushed. Did you show them anything? No, I said, retrieving my backpack. How did you know? She pulled me into the kitchen, away from windows. Grandpa told me to watch out for you if anything happened to him. Said they might try to initiate you, whatever that means. You knew. The betrayal stung anew. Not everything, she said, eyes downcast. I knew he had secrets, that he was involved in something powerful. But the extent? No. There are photos, Eliza. The burning cross. I believe you, she cut me off. But we need to leave, now. This goes deeper than you realize. Why should I trust you? Her eyes met mine. Because I've been trying to expose them for years. It's why I moved away. Why I stopped coming to family gatherings. I've been gathering evidence, building a case. And now you found the motherlode. I wanted to believe her. But the foundations of my reality had been undermined. If Grandpa Richard, moral exemplar, hero, had lived a lie, who could I trust? Call Marcus, she said, referencing my college roommate who'd become an investigative journalist. Tell him to meet us in Nashville. Don't use your phone. They might be monitoring it. That's paranoid, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I remembered Bill sitting in his cruiser, radioing someone after leaving. These men have controlled Clearwater for generations, Eliza insisted. They own the police, the courts, the banks. Why do you think this town has stayed so homogeneous while everywhere around us has changed? I'd never considered it, but she was right. Clearwater remained conspicuously unchanged compared to neighboring communities. What about the FBI? I suggested. Hate crimes, conspiracy. With what proof? Photos from the 1950s? We need more. Contemporary evidence connecting these men to ongoing activities. My grandfather's journal. The recent entries. The membership rolls with current dates. I found something, I said, pulling the journal from my backpack. Recent entries, names, meeting minutes. A flicker of triumph crossed Eliza's face. She reached for the journal, but something stopped me from handing it over. Let's get out of here first, I said, returning it to my backpack. We took my car, leaving Eliza's parked visibly in the driveway to avoid immediate suspicion. As we drove past the town limits, a weight seemed to lift. But in the rearview mirror, I saw a cruiser pull onto the road behind us. Don't speed up, Eliza warned. Act normal. The cruiser maintained distance but followed as we merged onto the highway toward Nashville. Call Marcus, Eliza urged, handing me her phone. Marcus answered on the third ring. This is unexpected, he said when I explained who was calling. I need your help, I said, keeping details vague. Can we meet? Of course. My office or somewhere public, Eliza whispered. The coffee shop near your office, I suggested. 2 hours. Is everything okay? Marcus asked, concern evident. I'll explain when we meet. After ending the call, I checked the rearview mirror again. The cruiser was gone. We lost them, I said, relief washing over me. Eliza's expression remained tense. They don't need to follow us. They know where we're going. How? She pointed to my phone on the center console. They've been watching you since the funeral. Probably before. Turn it off and remove the battery. Paranoia was infectious. I did as she suggested, then asked the question that had been burning since she arrived. How long have you known about Grandpa? She stared at the passing landscape. I found photos similar to yours when I was 16. Confronted him about it. What did he say? That sometimes maintaining peace requires strength. That outsiders wouldn't understand the delicate balance that kept Clearwater prosperous and safe. Her voice hardened. He tried to convince me it was a necessary evil. I almost believed him. He could be persuasive. I knew that persuasiveness intimately. Grandpa's ability to make you see things his way had seemed like wisdom rather than manipulation. What changed? I asked. I found newspaper articles about a black family that tried to move to Clearwater in 1992. Their house burned down before they could move in. Officially ruled accidental. And it wasn't? The daughter was my age. We were friends at school before the fire. Afterward, they moved away. No investigation, no arrests. Just silence. The implications settled heavily between us. I remembered 1992. I was 10. Grandpa had taken me fishing the weekend of that fire. If you've suspected for over a decade, why wait until now? I needed proof connecting current town leadership. Photos from the 50s wouldn't be enough. They'd claim it was ancient history, that the organization disbanded. But contemporary records, financial transactions, recent meeting minutes. She glanced at my backpack. Nashville's skyline appeared on the horizon. The city represented safety, anonymity, distance from the insular world of Clearwater. But as we approached, unease crept back, settling between my shoulder blades like a physical weight. We found parking near Marcus's office and walked to the coffee shop, hyper-aware of our surroundings. Every passing car, every glance from strangers heightened my paranoia. The coffee shop was busy with afternoon customers. We secured a corner table with views of both entrances and waited. Marcus arrived 15 minutes later, his journalist's attentiveness evident as he scanned the room before approaching. He embraced me warmly. "You look like hell," he observed, nodding to Eliza. "What's going on?" I opened my mouth to explain, but the words caught in my throat. How to begin unraveling a lifetime of lies. "We've uncovered evidence of an active hate group operating in Clearwater," Eliza stated plainly. "Leadership includes the current mayor, sheriff, and other prominent citizens." Marcus's professional demeanor immediately surfaced. "What kind of evidence?" I removed the journal from my backpack, along with selected photos and documents. As Marcus examined them, his expression shifted from journalistic interest to genuine shock. "This is," he began, "my grandfather's legacy," I finished. "With your permission, I want to take these to my editor," Marcus said. "This is major. We need guarantees of anonymity," Eliza insisted. "These people are dangerous." Of course, Marcus agreed, already photographing documents with his phone. "But this story needs to break quickly. If they suspect you've taken these materials." "They already do," I interrupted. "We were visited this morning." Concern crossed Marcus's face. "Then you shouldn't go back to Clearwater." "We won't," Eliza confirmed. "You can stay at my place tonight," Marcus offered. "I'll take these to my editor immediately. If all goes well, we can break the story tomorrow." Relief flooded through me. The burden would be shared, the truth exposed. Justice, whatever that might look like, could finally begin. As Marcus carefully returned the materials to my backpack, I noticed a man at the counter watching us. Something about his posture, his careful attention while pretending not to observe, triggered warning bells. "We need to go," I whispered. "Now." We exited through the back, Marcus leading us through service corridors he knew from his years covering Nashville's restaurant scene. Emerging into an alley, we hurried toward his apartment building several blocks away. Inside Marcus's apartment, the adrenaline finally subsided, leaving me exhausted. While Marcus made calls to his editor, Eliza and I sorted through the remaining documents, organizing evidence chronologically. "Listen to this," I said, reading from the journal's most recent entries. "The succession plan is in place. The young ones understand what's at stake. Clearwater will remain our sanctuary long after I'm gone. The outside world grows increasingly hostile to our values, but we've created something timeless here, a community preserving the natural order. When the inevitable collapse comes, we'll be the last standing, just as we planned in 1943. What does he mean by collapse?" I wondered aloud. Eliza's expression darkened. "There are entries in there about stockpiling. Weapons, supplies. I think they're preppers, waiting for some race war or societal breakdown." The journal painted a picture of a community existing in two realities, the charming small town seen by visitors and the shadowy enclave preparing for apocalypse. As night fell, Marcus returned from his meeting, energized. "They're running with it. Front page, digital edition midnight, print tomorrow. They're bringing in researchers to verify everything, contacting federal authorities." He poured whiskey for all of us. "By this time tomorrow, Clearwater's secrets will be exposed." We should have felt triumphant. Instead, unease lingered. "Something's bothering me," I admitted. "These documents, the journal, they're too perfect. Too comprehensive. Why would Grandpa keep such incriminating evidence?" "Maybe he never expected anyone to find it," Marcus suggested. "Or maybe," Eliza said slowly, "he wanted someone to find it." The thought was unsettling. What if this wasn't discovery but inheritance? The torch passes, generation to generation. "Get some rest," Marcus advised. "Tomorrow will be intense once this breaks." Sleep eluded me that night. Dreams of burning crosses intermingled with childhood memories of Grandpa, teaching me to tie fishing knots, his patient hands guiding mine. Both realities equally vivid, equally true. I awoke before dawn to find Eliza already up, staring at her laptop. "What is it?" I asked, noting her pallor. She turned the screen toward me. On it was an article from the Clearwater Gazette dated yesterday. "Tragic fire claims Montgomery home. Historical artifacts lost." According to the article, an electrical fire had destroyed my grandfather's house, our family home, along with all contents. Fire Chief Roberts, another name from the membership rolls, called it a devastating loss of local history. They're covering their tracks, Eliza whispered. My phone, which I'd turned back on against Eliza's advice, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The torch passes. Marcus's apartment doors splintered inward with a deafening crack. Men in tactical gear poured through, weapons raised, shouting commands. In seconds, we were face down on the floor, hands zip-tied behind our backs. Federal agents. Don't move. The raid was swift, professional. As they secured the apartment, a man in a suit entered, surveying the scene with cold efficiency. I'm Special Agent Harrington, FBI, he announced, displaying credentials. You three are being detained in connection with suspected domestic terrorism activities. There's been a mistake, Marcus protested as they pulled him to his feet. I'm a journalist investigating. We know exactly who you are, Mr. Lewis, Harrington interrupted. And we know about your family connections to the Knights of the White Camellia. Confusion crossed Marcus's face. What connections? Harrington nodded to an agent, who produced a folder. From it, he extracted a photograph. Marcus as a child, standing beside my grandfather at what appeared to be a community picnic. In the background, barely noticeable, a small white cross. Your grandfather was Richard Montgomery's right hand in the organization, Harrington stated. Your family has been involved for generations. The revelation hit me like physical blow. Marcus, my college roommate, my friend for over a decade, connected to my grandfather's organization? It seemed impossible. I had no idea, Marcus insisted, looking as shocked as I felt. We've been monitoring these cells for years, Harrington continued, unmoved. Your sudden interest in Clearwater's historical society materials triggered several alerts. As agents began collecting the documents spread across Marcus's dining table, the pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The convenient timing of Eliza's warning. Her insistence that we contact Marcus specifically. The cruiser that followed us only to mysteriously disappear. It was a setup, I realized aloud. All of it. Eliza wouldn't meet my eyes. We were separated for questioning. Hours passed in a featureless interview room, repeating my story to increasingly skeptical federal agents. Yes, I had only discovered the documents recently. No, I had no prior knowledge of my grandfather's activities. No, I wasn't attempting to continue his work. Finally, Harrington returned. Your cousin has been quite forthcoming, he said, setting a recorder on the table. You should listen. Eliza's voice filled the room. The plan was Richard's originally. He knew he was dying and wanted to ensure the organization's survival. The old ways weren't working anymore. They needed legitimacy, public sympathy. So he arranged everything. The documents discovered by his unsuspecting grandson, the journalist connection, the dramatic flight from Clearwater. All designed to make any subsequent FBI investigation appear as persecution rather than justice. My reality collapsed entirely. Grandpa hadn't kept those records carelessly. He'd positioned them deliberately for me to find. Eliza hadn't been trying to expose the organization. She'd been manipulating me according to my grandfather's plan. The torch passes, I whispered, understanding finally. Exactly, Harrington nodded. By exposing a sanitized version of the organization's history, focusing on cross-burnings from the 50s rather than contemporary activities, they hoped to control the narrative. When federal agents inevitably moved against current members, it would appear as government overreach, persecuting small-town citizens for ancient history. But why me? Why involve me at all? Because you're credible, educated, well-respected, with no known extremist ties. The perfect, innocent discoverer of these materials. Your genuine shock and horror would be convincing precisely because it was real. I thought of Bill, the mayor, and Dr. Whitaker visiting the house, not to recover incriminating evidence, but to ensure I'd found it, to set the plan in motion. What happens now? I asked hollowly. We've arrested 27 individuals connected to the Clearwater chapter, including your cousin and Mr. Lewis. Based on seized documents, we're moving against 6 other chapters across 3 states. And me. Harrington studied me. That depends on whether you were a willing participant or an unwitting pawn. I didn't know, I insisted. I would never. The evidence suggests you're telling the truth, he acknowledged. But there's something else you should see. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a single document, my grandfather's will, updated 2 months before his death. It named me as his successor, using specific language, to continue the work of preservation and resistance against forces that would undermine our way of life. This will was filed with the county clerk, Harrington explained. Whether you knew it or not, your grandfather named you as his heir, not just to his property, but to his organization. The torch passes. Hours later, I was released with restrictions, no travel outside the state, regular check-ins with federal authorities, cooperation with the ongoing investigation. The evidence, including my genuine shock upon discovering the photos, supported my claim of ignorance. With nowhere to go, my home destroyed, my family implicated, I checked into an anonymous hotel on Nashville's outskirts. The room's bland neutrality offered no comfort. Sleepless, I opened my laptop to find news of the raid's dominating headlines. Multi-state operation targets white supremacist network. Accompanying photos showed federal agents leading familiar faces away in handcuffs: Bill, Mayor Hampton, Dr. Whitaker, Eliza, Marcus. Comment sections beneath the articles were already filling with conspiracy theories, government overreach, persecution of traditional values, attacks on small-town America. Just as my grandfather had predicted. A knock at the door startled me. Through the peephole, I saw a hotel employee holding an envelope. "Delivery from Mr. Montgomery," he announced when I opened the door. The envelope contained a single key and a handwritten note: "Storage Unit Number 137, River Road Facility." The true inheritance. I recognized my grandfather's handwriting immediately. Rational judgment told me to contact Agent Harrington to turn over this new evidence. But something stronger, curiosity, destiny, the pull of blood, propelled me to my car. The storage facility was deserted at this late hour. Unit number 137 was located in the back corner, away from security cameras. The key turned smoothly in the lock. Inside, no documents, no photos, no ceremonial ropes. Just a single wooden crate with a digital keypad. On top, another note: "Your birth date." I entered the 8 digits. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Inside the crate, $5 million in bearer bonds, 3 passports with my photo but different names, GPS coordinates, and a final handwritten message. The Montgomery legacy isn't what you've been led to believe. Neither Clearwater nor the Knights were ever the true purpose. They were the distraction, the public face that kept attention diverted from our actual work. By the time you read this, the necessary sacrifices will have been made. The FBI has their victory, the public has their scandal, and those who serve their purpose have been removed from the equation. Now the real work begins. The coordinates will guide you to others who carry the torch. History is written by victors, but shaped by those who remain in shadow. Your true inheritance awaits. Grandpa Richard. Reality shifted once more. What if the organization I'd exposed was itself a facade? What if my grandfather's plan was even more complex than the FBI realized? The coordinates pointed to a location in southern Argentina. I stood at the crossroads of choice, the crate's contents representing a doorway to yet another reality, one where my grandfather's legacy continued through me, where the torch indeed passed to the next generation. Behind me, a demolished home, an imprisoned cousin, federal scrutiny, a life forever altered by revelations. Before me, escape, wealth, purpose, belonging, and the perpetuation of something I still didn't fully understand. I closed the crate. 1 year later, I sat in another hotel room, this one overlooking Buenos Aires. On the desk before me, a laptop displayed news from Clearwater, memorial park dedicated to victims of hate group legacy. The article showed the town's attempt to reckon with its history, to cleanse itself of the Montgomery stain. Beside the laptop lay my grandfather's journal. I'd read it cover to cover multiple times during the past year, searching for the truth beneath the obvious narrative. Patterns had emerged, references to the greater work, coordinates matching those from the storage unit, names of individuals across continents. Agent Harrington remained convinced I'd been an unwitting pawn. I'd told him about the storage unit, surrendered the bearer bonds and passports. But I'd kept the coordinates, the final note, and most importantly, the journal. Some truths weren't ready for exposure. The hotel phone rang, the signal I'd been waiting for. "Is this Richard?" a voice asked when I answered. My grandfather's name, now mine. "Yes," I replied, completing the authentication. "The torch passes. We're ready for you," the voice confirmed. As I gathered my belongings, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The resemblance to my grandfather grew stronger each day, not just physically, but in the eyes. The knowing gaze of someone who understood that freedom meant different things to different people, that some battles were fought not with burning crosses but with patient, invisible influence spanning generations. I'd come to understand my grandfather's greatest lesson. The most dangerous men aren't those who parade their hatred openly, but those who hide behind respectability while working in shadow. The torch indeed passes, not a flame of hatred as I'd initially feared, but something more insidious, more patient, more invisible, and much, much more powerful. Tonight, I would finally meet the others, learn the true purpose behind the Montgomery legacy, and take my place in whatever hidden design had been unfolding for generations. The most terrifying realization wasn't that my grandfather had been a monster. It was that his monstrosity had only been a mask for something far more profound, and that I, despite all my horror and resistance, found myself drawn inexorably toward the same shadows that had claimed him. The torch passes, not because we choose to carry it, but because it is already within us, waiting to be ignited. Some inheritances cannot be rejected. Some photographs should remain buried. Some truths should never see light.